Welcome back. So in this episode, we talked about are you the cancer or are you the cure? So I talked a little bit the last episode about this situation, and I think people get it confused. And it's not, again, when I'm talking about these subjects, I'm not trying to bolster one side or another necessarily. I'm not trying to. Obviously, as I have my own points of views. Obviously, I have my own political stances. But that was one of the things that I feel like a lot of people, including myself for a long time, are lacking is understanding each other's points of views, not just something similar to my own. Again, and I completely understand why people think that way. It's a busy world. You think of all the information we're taking in, and it dwarfs the past. I mean, could you? I mean, that's the funny thing is, like I've said, and I have to think about this episode, but I remember talking about how I think it was the one I call the Tale of Two Cities. But the idea is that things gotten significantly better. If you think of the quality of life, if you think about civility, if you think about how humane we are to each other. It was not that long ago when you could have public hangings. It was not that. It was, I think, like 400 years ago. You'd have public decapitations, and everyone of all ages, of all demographics would come out and applaud it. And then again, too, you think of just the standard of fighting. Specifically around the Revolutionary War, they would line up, stand there. They would know the other side was about to fire. They'd hear them giving the command, and they would just stand there. And I'm just thinking that's insane. I mean, World War II, getting out of those, taking Normandy, that was insane because it was designed where all the troops are right here, and so the bullets would come right in, and so it was almost like shooting fish in a barrel, literally. And yet, you see these brave men willingly charging towards the enemy, and so you just see the mentality, and you see the advancements we have made as humans, and yet I feel like we're dealing with so much more mentally. Obviously, not nearly as many of us are seeing traumatic things like butchering people and so forth. But you just wonder that's interesting. We shouldn't just say we've advanced so much. Stop whining. We've advanced so much. It's why are we having a harder time? And I think that's what it is. Is that I think as we've become more humane, we've become more aware of evil actions of ourself, and yet we haven't developed how to understand that. We haven't developed, the impact that that's going to have on the human mind. That now that we care so much for human life, and now that we have evolved so much in a very positive way of humanity, of civility, how is that going to affect our mentality? Because the real world's still there. People still kill each other. People still hate each other for trivial things like the color of their skin or their wealth or whatever. So how are we going to deal with it? And so again, I feel like that's why there's a lot of people that are trying to take action, extreme action, is that there's simply this desire to be a part of the solution. And so, like I say, I propose that question: are you the cancer or are you the cure? And I think, generally speaking, I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed with the answer, which is it's not about what side of the argument you're on. It's not about what side of the political aisle you're on. It's not about what side of the religion you're on. It's about what representation, what actions you're taking in the name of and for those causes, for those parties. And yeah, because I feel like that's that thing where people want to figure out what sides. I feel like a lot of people treat life like it's Star Wars or something. And there are actually certain elements that are actually true within Star Wars. But anyhow, I'm not going to nerd out too much. But the idea being is that they all, everyone wants to see themselves as the Jedi, and the opposition, is the evil Sith. They want these black and white systems where one side is good and one side is evil. And really what I'm saying is that, these different perspectives on life, that's why we came together as a nation of so many different countries, and why, I'm going to paraphrase the quote on the Statue of Liberty that says, bring us your poor, your impoverished, or I can't remember everything, but it pretty much just says, if you want to thrive, come here. And there's no distinction to a country or color or creed or religion. And so, you think of that mentality, and I think it's great. I think it's really amazing for people of all different backgrounds to be coming together and trying to hold each other up, because I feel Like ultimately, that's really where what can we not accomplish if we are united as one. Um, but again, you just wonder. It's like, well, if we're trying to be united as one, bring the best of us, we need to take into account what that means, what it's going to take. Because again, if we all have different religions, we're all going to have different things that derive our values, that drive our actions or lack thereof. That was one of the things. And again, I'm getting slightly off track, but just to kind of clarify, the importance is that I think it was during the Persian invasion of Greece, the Spartans. If you've ever watched the movie 300 or anything about that, there's a point where they're talking about these religious events are taking place, and so the Spartan army can't go to war and blah blah. And that was another issue with the all of Greece, was that all these Greek states couldn't send troops during the Persian invasion. And so what it was actually the Olympics, which were a religious dedication to the gods and goddesses. And so and that's how dedicated they were. They knew that there were hundreds of thousands or millions of Persians that were going to take them over, and they were so dedicated to their beliefs that they weren't willing to send troops. And that's why the 300 went, was simply to slow them, was to buy time so that these Olympics, these games for the gods, could partake, and that these other Greeks could essentially act in their faith. But yes, and so again, you see so many times where our religions will direct our actions. Will make it to where again, you see everything going on with the pandemic and such, and people not being cool with people going to church. And obviously that I think that it's important to have those safety precautions everywhere. That being said, I do think it is really important for people's mental health to be taken into account. And I do think that faith is a very strong contributor, whatever your religion may be. So again, I think it's just really important to identify that we're all going to have different things that strongly influence our perspectives and our beliefs. And again, if we're going to accept each other as we are, I think it's important to acknowledge what that means, rather than just simply say, I'm going to accept you as long as you are like me, as long as anything that you believe in doesn't infringe on anything I believe in, somehow thinking that whatever I believe supersedes all. And so again, I feel like that's one of the things I want people to self-examine and realize, how is your behavior helping? And again, I don't want somebody to simply say, well, I'm denouncing and verbally attacking anybody who says otherwise, anybody who doesn't agree with my cause. That's being a cancer, because ultimately you're not helping your cause. You're making people think that it's hooey, that it's wrong, that it's that people that support it are hateful and spiteful. And again, too, because coming back to mental illness, to simply just telling somebody to pull themselves up and to not feel sorry for themselves, does that remove the pain? Does that remove the reasons? No. And the same thing goes with people's perspectives on politics, on religion, and all these different debates, is that you have to understand, just like you have very valuable, influential things that they give you, I would say, they give your cause, your position value, so do they. It might not be as valid, it might not be as credible, but that's not necessarily for you to decide. Like I said, if I want to help my causes, if I want to help my demographic of pain, then I need to be a strong representative and do what is necessary and what is effective, not what is simply justified. It's justifiable for me being in a position of pain that I have been, for me to cast verbal stones at people. But will it accomplish anything? No, it won't. If nothing, it might embolden other people who haven't necessarily suffered my pain to represent my pain. And again, too, are they actually helping my pain? No, they're actually hurting it, because they're not an experienced source of the pain. And so therefore, if somebody sees them acting irrationally, they see them acting in an aggressive, non-provoked manner, they're gonna make it seem like whatever they're supporting isn't valid. It's not credible. So again, you need to figure out if you're the cancer and you're the cure. And again, you got to think about it objectively. A cure is something that helps people. It nurtures them, because I understand the emotions behind people's extreme actions, but I don't understand I mean, that they're not being objective. They're not really analyzing it and being like, does a cure call people names? Does a cure, I see people say that they're loving and caring, and yet their actions would say otherwise. It's that expression, actions speak louder than words. And so if you want your words to be heard, I think it's important for your actions to promote that same message, to again, it's just one of those things where if you're going to attack somebody and say that they're evil and mean or whatever, you need to do so. And again, you're trying to say you're caring, you're the cure. Then you need to think about how would the cure behave. Like I said, how would the cure of a lack of civility and civil unrest, how would it behave? It would do so in a loving, caring manner. It wouldn't do so trying to verbally assault somebody or scream at somebody or aggressively attack somebody. So again, it's just one of those things where, and I think a big part of that too is that the rebuttal I've seen in this kind of a topic was, well, they wouldn't listen to us when we were speaking nicely, so now we're gonna shove it down their throats. And so again, I would say that is possible. Certainly it's possible that you were talking civilly and people heard you and didn't respond. But two, I'd also say that there's a lot of people out there. So who knows? You could have influenced a dozen or 2 dozen or whatever, where people were looking at you and looking at your conduct and how you represented your pain, and they could have appreciated it. They could have realized the errors of their ways or their perspectives, and you could have positively influenced them. But again, there's 320 million people in this country. So even if you convince even a good percentage, there's still going to be people that need to be talked to. Still people that aren't going to have their own points of views. And I think it's really diminishing for causes for your mental health to constantly be focusing on the people you disagree with. Again, I feel like it's important to, figure out how to, I say enlighten people to show them your pain. But I think it's really important to get strength and to get courage and motivation. And it's not constantly looking at your faults. It's not constantly looking at the people who need to be helped, so to speak. Again, because it's about, the stronger you are, the more effective you're going to be to help people. So if you're emotionally spent, and that's how you justify your lashing out, if you justify your physical or verbal assault on somebody because they voted for somebody or whatever, or don't agree with your cause, you're probably in a completely depleted state of mind where you just feel overwhelmed. You just feel like the only action is extreme action because it's not enough. Then you probably need to take a step back, or maybe 5, and then invigorate yourself. Surround yourself with people that you can get support from, that you can mentally, get mental rehab. You can unplug, and because again, it's just one of those things where when I see people saying hateful things, doing hateful things against people that I would support, against my own pain, it is easy for my emotions to catch me. But that's the difference, is that it's one of those things where it is possible that I wasn't as objective or self-reflecting, but generally I don't want to go on this channel and use it as a form of attack. Like I said, I want to more just identify where we're going awry and why, rather than just simply condemning the behavior. Because again, I understand that it's easy to look at people and just condemn their behavior, say this is, point out the hypocrisy, point out this and that. But I also understand that that's not going to sway anybody on that position. No one who's misbehaving is suddenly going to be like, oh, you humiliated me and attacked me and pointed out my hypocrisy on something that it's public. Sure, I'm going to suddenly see the errors of my ways, or am I possibly going to probably double down on my actions and continue it because I'm going to be emotionally hurt? Because again, even if someone's wrong, ridiculing them in public and trying to laugh at their position, laugh at their outlook on life, it's not going to accomplish anything but enrage people on the opposition. Again, it's something where I think to keep a level head, there's nothing wrong with finding some humor in the privacy of your home, but to publicly try to belittle somebody in their pain is not effective for anyone. But as always, good luck and good night.